Good morning and welcome to H3 TV. I feel like I want to say happy holidays today. Merry Christmas, happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa. I put some red on for you guys because I was just like, I am trying to get in the holiday spirit. Not that I'm not, I just need a little red. It's 43 in Florida today, so it is chilly even in Florida. So hence the little sweater I need today. So welcome to H3 TV, where I try to meet you at least once a week and kind of share tips on how we deal with interruption, disruption, change, challenge, whatever it is you're going through as an individual or as an organization. We started H3 TV in 2020 when we recognized people were feeling isolated, disconnected. They needed conversation, they needed community, and more than anything, they needed some encouragement. And so I started to come to you every week because I am a visual learner. I like to do a talk show instead of a podcast. And I decided, what if I came and just encouraged you? And what if, even better, I came to you but invited somebody every week to join me and share how they have navigated disruption in their own life. And so please don't hesitate to make comments, ask questions. Myself and my guests will always get back to you and respond, whether we do it in the chat on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube. We'll make sure to read what you write and to interact when possible live. So today I have the pleasure of having my friend Allie join me. So please welcome to the stage, Miss Allie. Hey, Allie, how are
Hi.
you?
Hi, Annie. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. So happy to have you. I love your fun earrings today. They just look alive and fun. So very
Yes, I always have it's my little bit of flair when you only get dressed from the waist up.
nice. You got to work with what you have, right? And I'm an earring
Exactly.
lover. So, Allie, tell us about you. Who are you? Where do you live? What do you do?
Wow, we don't have a couple hours, so I'm going to brief this down into 2 minutes. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. I grew up all over the world internationally, so was afforded very cool opportunities to be exposed to different cultures. Moved to China when I was 16 for several years. Worked in politics in my 20s, jaded by politicians. I got into technical analysis day trading at my home in the Bahamas. And at 27, I broke my neck in a shallow water diving accident. As I say this smiling, but I was in the ICU and my dad said to me, I broke my body, not my brain. So get to work. So continue to work full time. And I pretty much spent the next 7 years of my life in hospitals with every medical complication one could imagine. So it was pretty much medical survival mode for many years of my life. And I moved to Raleigh in 2016. Spent another year in bed from a pressure sore, which was epically life changing, which we'll get into. And
Mhm.
then I started to marry my two lives together of disability advocacy with my professional entrepreneurial business background and started to dive into the world of diversity, equity, and inclusion with a focus on disability. And it's been epically life changing for me because I get to help humans. Human kindness and paying it forward. Those are the two philosophies I live by. And recently, I've been speaking for years, but didn't know it could become a professional. I could become a professional speaker. So that's a new venture because I absolutely love to inspire people through the lens of my story, but hopefully everyone can take a lesson from it. So that's Allie in 2 minutes.
Awesome. I like it, Allie. What I think about with you, Allie, just even in your intro, is when I first started when I became a professional speaker, my business name was No More Excuses for You. And I think so many of us let excuses stop us. And you're such a brilliant example of optimism. And hey, and I love your dad. You know, he kind of kicked your butt, which is a little
Yeah.
scary when you're down. It's like, can you just feel sorry for me? Nope, get to work, girl.
He's English. I should note that he's English. So, that probably has something to do with it.
And so no excuses. It doesn't matter. There's so many people with so many less obstacles and challenges than you that get stuck in the negative with the self-pity. And I love how optimistic you are, even with the obstacles. Optimist with the obstacles. I love it. So Allie, when I say the word, for me, the hurricane really inspired my focus on disruption. So when I say the word disruption or change or challenge, what comes to mind for you? Just the general definition of that word.
Growth. Just one word, growth. Disruption leads to growth. I find those who've been most challenging situations in life have the best outlook, work the hardest, and have the most profound changes in their life that they have instituted themselves with their change in mindset.
Yeah, I love that. I think, Allie, I love that that's what you find, and I want that to be what I find. And yes, sometimes it is, but I also think it's a choice, right? Like some people let that knock them down, knock them off. But I think we have that choice. And if we use it right, like this is hard, but I'm going to be a better person. I'm going to take what I have, whether it's less or different than what I expected, and I'm going to make good. So I also agree. Some of the hardest working people have met have overcome so many things, but some people get defeated and give up. And I think that they need the inspiration of a person like you and like me and like people that do this speaking thing to encourage them sometimes on their journey. So when you think of your own life and career, and you've had so many amazing things you've done already, what do you think of as a personal or professional disruption that has made an impact on your life?
I would say hands down, I s- I was 5 years into my injury, and I was living in China at the time from a spinal surgery to save my life, and because they wouldn't operate them in the U.S. And when I moved back to the United States, I thought, great, okay, I'm a quadriplegic, paralyzed from the chest down with paralyzed hands. I get it. I can live like this. Life has to get back to normal. Well, the moment I stepped into moment I moved to Raleigh, I developed a stage 4 pressure sore on my tailbone. So it's 4 centimeters deep, which multiple surgeries gone wrong, lots of surgeon errors. I had to spend an entire year in bed. And actually, ironically, the best year of my life. And it changed the course of my life forever because I made a schedule for myself. I was day trading every day. I was getting involved in the advocacy community, and I was fighting health insurance companies because they deeply, deeply irritated me because they kept denying everything. And that work, I didn't know what would happen a year later, but it went national and it blew up. And that actually propelled me to get involved with nonprofits, government organizations, legislative initiatives, and then switch my professional career. But I had a schedule. So every day I would get up at 5 a.m. and I would read, I would work, I would get involved. So I just, the demons can crawl in when you're looking at 4 walls and you feel like it's a jail cell. But it's also okay to not be okay. So it's raw. My life is raw and it's authentic and it's funny. And what helps me get through my days is dark humor. Lots and lots of dark humor. If I don't laugh, I have to laugh out loud every day. It releases endorphins. I have a 20-minute dance party to myself every day, but we each have to have our own mental coping strategies.
Oh my gosh, I love this so much, Ellie. I need this. I feel like you're speaking to me today. I love that you say it with a smile too, right? And my word for 2024 is grounded. And I was telling my husband, I feel like I've been on sinking and shaking sand since the hurricane hit, and it's been really hard. And the best thing, and you're just such a good reminder, the best thing is to get back into that routine. Like I love my 5 a.m. routine when I'm consistent with it. And what do I do in the morning, and the music and the prayer and the exercise and whatever it is you can do when there's a lot of things you can't do. So thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. So when you're in your prison cell hospital room for a year, I can't even imagine. I was there for 48 hours and or 25, I don't know, however many hours last weekend, and it felt overwhelming. And I was desired to get out. I can't imagine a year. I know a lot of our listeners can't imagine being in a hospital room for a year, but we can certainly imagine what it feels like to be in a prison cell. And sometimes that's a prison of our own mind. Sometimes that's a prison of physical area. So how did you, in that space of a year, stay hopeful? What did you do to keep hope when it felt dark and hard?
Well, I reminded myself too, and I come across this a lot, that being physically paralyzed, it's quite easy. I just sit here. I don't have to do much, but it's the mental paralysis that can really, really get you. So I found during that time it was really important to keep on a schedule. And that, my dad said something to me profound. He goes, Allie, someone will always have it better than you in life and worse than you. You cannot compare your situations. You're in this, you have to survive this somehow. And I went through a very dark time when I was living in China for a number of reasons, and they had surgical complications. So I understand dark. I am bubbly and I am the Energizer Bunny on wheels and I'm the quirky quad, but I know what dark feels like. I really do. I don't, especially when I go through challenging times, I end up laughing harder. So I kept on a schedule, and then I started mentoring folks in the disability community who are
Mhm.
going through similar healthcare battles. So every day in my bed, I would have my computer with my voice dictation and I would help other people. And I finally found my purpose that I didn't even know was my purpose till years later, that helping other humans is literally what gets me out of bed in the morning, and it stops making me feel sorry for myself if I have those moments. And I have them, we all do, but I have that moment. I'll live in it for a minute or an hour, but then I get, what do you do when you get sick and tired of being sick and tired? It's exhausting. So I decided to make a mental choice, but it's a choice. It's always a choice.
I love that. Definitely a choice. And 100%. I'm a huge believer and advocate of when you help others, it gets you out of yourself. And when you start to think, oh my gosh, my life's so hard. Well, if you look around, there's always someone truly that has it worse off. And if you can serve them, if you can think of someone in
Mhm.
isolation, think of someone lonely, think of someone, whatever. I love that. I have a friend whose husband works in ADA. What does that stand for? Allie, I should know this, but
American Disabilities Act.
American Disability Act, but he's blind and he works for Airbnbs and just so many things that those of us that don't have at least an outward disability take for granted, like how you have to think about. And he's like, I love it because I'm always thinking about how would someone else stay in this Airbnb? How would someone else deal? I love that you are like, who can I serve?
I know this sounds odd, but do you know what I love about disability? It's the one thing that doesn't discriminate against age or race or sexual identity. Brings us together authentically. Whether you have a visible or a non-visible disability, you're a caretaker of someone disability, or there's called just aging. You're going to acquire some kind of chronic illness at some point in your life. So it's something we can all authentically connect with.
Mm, beautiful. I love that. I say that I'm not disabled, I'm different, but I have ADHD and I have dyslexia and I literally see things different. So when I text people a lot, still to this day, they'll be like, are you drunk? Is something wrong with you? But to me, the words look right, or I think I have words there that aren't there, or whatever. And I think that I love that. And now,
So, and I don't use, I mean, disability, disabled, there's different schools of thought, but I always like to say individuals who have different access needs, those who move, think, and sense and communicate differently, which is most of us, right? And so we just have to live our lives in an adapted fashion. And the late disability advocate Hale Zuka said, everyone is temporarily able bodied, which is very true.
yeah, that is. I love that. And it is about adapting. And thank you for that. Cause I'm always like, don't let that label define you. Some people want to make you smaller because of something. And people for years did it to me growing up. And I'm like, wait a minute. That doesn't mean you're not smart, brilliant, successful, capable. You just do it differently for whatever reason, whatever. So beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Um, how about healthy? How did you stay healthy? So you're in a hospital room. The world could be saying, you're not healthy, Allie, but you're saying, wait a minute, don't define me. So what did you do to stay healthy financially, emotionally, physically, spiritually, whatever in the midst of that
Ah,
hospital room?
I am the scientist in my own life. So I experiment on myself quite frequently.
Okay.
So, from a health perspective, on a physical nutrition, I have always been very big into nutrition. So, would eat off a spreadsheet quite literally, because when you're paralyzed, you just don't need the caloric intake. So, it's all about nutritional density. And food is a drug. So, eating healthy, it keeps my body as healthy as it can be. And I exercise. I would even get TheraBand, those stretchy rubber bands. I would tie them to the hospital sides of the rail and I would exercise. The nurses would come in and they would laugh, like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I have to exercise too. Just because of my bed doesn't mean I can't stay healthy. And I decorated my room with tapestries and I brought in all kinds of colors. They told me it was illegal. I said, I don't care. I said, have you read the clinical papers that happy people heal faster?
Mm.
So it was just kind of a lot of sheer grit, determination. But my dad said when I was 3 I had that, so perhaps I'm genetically wired a little bit. I am a little bit different as well.
Yeah, you are truly an exception. I love that about you. And even financially, right? Like you started.
Work full time, and I appreciate a lot of folks with mobility impairments when they have a significant accident. Most people are on government benefits. I was fortunate enough to be able to work full time, which is really, but our governmental system, that's a whole nother topic. We won't even dive into that at the moment. But I focus a lot on disability employment initiatives with different corporations on these very issues.
I love Allie too. We talked about choice a little bit, but it's once you make the choice, that's kind of step one or like deciding I'm not going to sit in this. but then you took action. And I love that too. Like, hey, I'm bringing in color. No, I'm not going to live in a white hospital room. I'm going to have color. I'm going to have access. You don't need to do that. No, I do. And you listening to yourself, knowing what you could do, what you were willing to do. And even if people said it's not going to make a difference, you don't need that, not listening to that and saying, it makes a difference in my mindset, makes a difference
It
in
is.
my
Just
body.
be your own self-advocate in every area. I focus a lot on that in my speeches and my work when I work with individuals. I write a lot on LinkedIn and social media, and often my posts are raw and authentic. And I'll get that one comment back, like, thank you. I thought I was alone. You expressed what I was thinking in words. If I can take, if in one day, if I can help one person a day feel less alone or make a change, it can be very, very small. It doesn't have to be these life profound changing lessons, but that is really what keeps me going through the chronic pain and secondary complications I deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, and so I think it's about being seen and valued, and you're such an advocate for really what I call the pineapple principle, but just seeing people, right? Valuing people.
Love your pineapple principle.
Right. I love the pineapple principle. And I was interviewing someone about a month ago now, and she gave me an acronym that I love. I always want to give credit to Jennifer Johnson, but she said, Hope, Annie. And I said, Oh, I love that word, hope. And she said, Do you know what it stands for? And I said, No. And she goes, Help one person every day.
Ooh, I love
Isn't
that.
that good? Yes,
Uh-huh.
Jennifer. And so I've shared it a bit because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm always talking about hope, but I also know that I find my hope in helping others, getting out of myself, getting out of my own struggle, and who can I serve? Now, there's times we got to take a break, take care of ourselves, but
Mhm.
I think it's so important. So you said you have dark humor. You said you laugh every day. You know, when we're in a small room and when the world's telling us, oh man, it's not going to work out for you. And, you know, don't, you need to calm down a little, sister, and not be so wild and optimistic because the life is hard and you might be stuck here forever. How did you find the dang humor? Where did you find the laughter? How did you encourage yourself to laugh every
Well, I
day?
tell him to go fly a kite. And I have this philosophy as a teenager, and I can't, these probably are not appropriate stories for social media, but it's do it for the story. So ever
Mhm.
since a young age, I would do things that adventures around the world, you name it. They didn't always end well for me, but I have the stories. And at the end of the day, I'm not going to think about how much money I made or how much I worked. I'm going to think about the people's lives I've affected and who I've affected theirs. And I don't have children, so it's my greatest hope that one day as a legacy that someone will take a lesson that they learned from me and pass it on to the next generation. That's what I think about. So my lifespan as a quadriplegic is shortened just due to a lot of complications. So I wake up every day and I ask myself, okay, if I have 10 or I'm 40, if I have 10 or 15 good years of this alley energy, energizer bunniness, how do I want to spend that each and every day? And that's a question I wake up with every day. And Winston Churchill's quote, success consists of moving from failure to failure without lack of enthusiasm. I fail all the time. People only commend me on my 20% of successes. I write about my failures. They just actively choose to gloss over it.
I love that. And I think it is like we embrace the messy, right? I figure it's going to screw up. So why not put myself out there? If it happens to work out, that'll be amazing, but
Yep.
it'll more likely mess up. So you're saying 20% of the time you succeed, 80% of the time you fail, and you
Mhm.
still laugh about it.
I do. I don't know why I laugh about it, but the more absurd things get, the harder I laugh. But you do release endorphins and serotonin when you do laugh, even when you fake smile. So, I mean, that's just science.
It is. It's science and it's truth. Like I always say, you know, laughter is the best medicine. Owning gyms for 12 years, what we found is when people were bitter and negative and poor me, they would have less likely results and joy and whatever. But if they just laughed and expected themselves to be kind of goofy and messy, they just had so much more joy in life. So I love that. I wonder, Allie, when you look back at your younger self, so when did your accident happen? You were 27?
I was 27. It was in 2010.
Okay. So you had lived a bit of life before.
I lived 20 lives. I
Wow.
went to jail in China. I lived in the outback in Australia for months, and that was life. Yep. So, like I said, I did it for the story. I called my mom from jail when I was 17. Mom, I love you. I have 3 minutes left on my phone cards. Yes, this was back in the day of Nokia, old brick cell phones and phone cards. Give me 7 days, and I promise you I'll get out. I think she had a heart attack, but she trusted me. But I said, if you don't hear from anyone, call the State Department because then I'm lost.
Then I'm in trouble.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, your poor mother. That's what I'm thinking about as a mother, those phone calls. So what do you wish you knew as a younger person, either prior to your accident or as a young teenager with your silly sense of humor and joy and the story? Do it for the story. I love that message. I think that's important. Do it for the story. So what would you tell that younger person if you had a chance?
This may seem off the cuff because a lot of people have lessons to tell their younger selves. I I don't think I would. I grew up with such a loving family that they always made me appreciate and show me the value of life and culture and living every moment to its fullest. The only thing I would tell myself, and this is more in the comedy department, I don't know if it's appropriate, but don't do so many drugs in college. I mean, that's a true story. If you're going out raw and authentic, I had a great time, lived at the Playboy Mansion in Los Angeles, but I probably should have cut that part out.
I think it's all part of the story,
But I
right?
told my mom, in all seriousness, the day I broke my neck, I said to her about 10 minutes before, I said, Mom, I love you. I love my life. I literally wouldn't change anything about it. Thank you for the life you've given me.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was pretty profound. And then, well, then I took a dive and then things turned around a bit.
Yeah. What a great message right now. I just think about all the parents out there wishing that they could have their child say that to them. Like what a gift, Allie, you gave your mom in that moment, and you continue to.
She is my ride or die. She has been there. She did not have to devote the last 13 years of her life to me and my dad too, and my brothers and sisters, but my mom and dad especially. He flew around the world for me trying to find every therapy in the world. She's been there through thick and thin. I call her an endangered species. She's a super spinal cord injury mom. And every since she just lives 2 condos over for me because I made them purchase next to me. Every single day I tell her I love her and I appreciate her every single day.
I think that's a great message too that brings us joy is don't take life for granted. I think when we think, oh, well, someday I'll be happy if this happens or that happens, and you're like, no, this is my moment. I have a moment. I'm going to tell people I love them. I'm going to find laughter. I'm going to do whatever. What have you done, Allie, since you have so many life lessons? So it doesn't even have to be the spinal cord injury, whatever. What have you done to use? And even you lived life so much to the fullest when you were so young. How do you use those lessons and those life experiences to teach and influence others for good?
I do it on a larger scale with my work and my speaking and in corporations. But honestly, do you know where my true passions come from? Personal mentoring. So I mentor about 4 to 5 people who generally have just been injured from a spinal cord injury, who are generally in their 20s. And I take the time every week. Oftentimes, they're still very much in the angry phase or the confusion phase, or what am I going to do with my life? And I listen. And especially with women, I focus more on women. And it's not about bowel and bladder and how do I drive my wheelchair. A lot of it's how do I put on my makeup? How do I feel like a girl? How do I go out and have fun? And those are the things I focus on because that's really important. When I broke my neck, I woke up and I had worn mascara every day my whole life. And I said to my mom, "Where's my mascara? I need my mascara." For some reason, the ICU with a neck brace and morphine, I had to look pretty. So, yeah. So for me, it's the individually mentoring, and I only ask them one thing. Eventually, you're not going to need me anymore. So please pass it on and pay it forward to help the next person.
I love that. I always say that gratitude is a good life. Like it's good to be grateful for what you have, what you've done, what you're capable of. But a great life is generous. We are not created just for ourselves and what we get out of life. It's like, who can I impact with what I've learned? Who can I help? Who can I support on the journey? And I also love that you, when the time's appropriate, challenge them to pay it forward when they're get solid enough and when they feel secure enough. And it is like little things like put on the mascara, right? That other people just put on the mascara. Who was I talking to? Oh, a friend just lost, a friend of a friend just lost their voice box. And she was saying, can you imagine having a trach the rest of your life? And like all of a sudden breathing and talking, everything that so many of us just take for granted is gone. And I love that you do advocacy work and you do it from this place of joy and generosity and what is possible rather than what is missing.
That's what makes me who I am. It's the advocacy, pro bono advocacy part of my life. And I end up working sometimes 60, 70 hours a week, and it's exhausting at times, but it's still worth it.
Yeah. And wouldn't you rather be exhausted from working hard than just from sitting around and feeling bad, right? Like,
exactly.
Okay, what do we do with this? So Allie, I want to hear from you a story about somebody you did pour into and how what success did they find that you really are so grateful to have been part of and to watch or encourage?
Oh, that is a great question. At any point in my life or after my accident?
Anytime, whatever you want to tell us. What is something, I think that because as we're talking about life is about what we get to do for others. And for me as a speaker and coach, I love doing that, but I really love seeing and feeling the success of people implementing the ideas and encouragement that I share. And so who's somebody you've worked with individually or as an audience that
Well,
you've seen some
recently
change?
I just worked for a healthcare organization actually as a consultant, and they came in, their diversity, equity, and inclusion employee resource group, and they had to present to their C-suite council leaders a plan of action
Wow.
on wellness and belonging and inclusion for their neurodiverse employees. And this was a room of very smart individuals, but they were very busy with their time. And then I worked with them over the course of 3 or 4 months, and it was this humbling experience to bring together everyone's ideas into a very 15-minute presentation. And when they presented to the council said yes to every single item and they're taking action. So I love to see when I work with an individual or a client, and that's why I'm probably a consultant, because I love to learn from different people, organizations, and I love to bring it forward and pay it forward to the next person I work with, whether that's in my personal life or professional life. So that gives me a great, great sense of gratitude to do that. And then one other quick one. I recently gave a speech to a keynote speech to the ALS Foundation on caregiving. And that was a really hard one because caregiving is very challenging for those with physical disabilities as well, because we're relying on another human being. It's a very special bond that you can't describe unless you are a caregiver or have been one.
Yeah.
And some of the caregivers and came up to me afterwards and said, "Thank you. I just needed to hear that I wasn't alone and this is hard, but I'm going to be okay and I have resources and support." And that made me cry. And I'm not a big cry person. I mean, I don't intentionally not to be. I laugh instead of cry, I think.
That's beautiful and so, so important. I know with caregivers, it's like sometimes they need as much support or more support
Oh,
than the
yeah.
person because they're giving and they want to give, but it's so depleting and they feel isolated, alone. So
I
beautifully
call
done.
it a voluntary emotional hostage situation where, especially if it's with the family members and you take families taking care of the other one, the party that, you know, the caregiver wants to help but gets burned out. The caregivee, it feels guilty for asking for help. So they both get trapped in their
Mm,
mind and their strategies to get out of your own way and with these emotional hostage situations. And
yeah,
you can kind of become each other's psychic vampires where you drain each other's energy, and there's so much love there, but it's exhausting. We're just human. We're perfectly imperfect.
that's right. Both doing the best you can, but being drained and exhausted by it. So if you could tell us, I know this is going to be a bit hard, but in three lessons that you have learned to this day in life from beginning to today, what are three life lessons you wish you could teach the world that's listening, that's thinking, that's in their own journey? What are three life lessons that you would like to teach us?
Okay, first life lesson would be emotional intelligence. That leads to empathy, understanding, inclusion, because there's such a lack of empathy because many people I meet are not even self-aware of their emotional regulation and how to adjust for that. And that results in discrimination and that results in miscommunication. Second lesson would definitely be what I iterated before on paying it forward, that doing something that's bigger than yourself. At first, you know, there's an interesting debate whether paying it forward is altruistic or not, because when you pay it forward and you help someone, it makes you feel good. So is it selfish or is it altruistic? I'm going with altruistic, and it's wonderful. Even if it makes you feel great, that's wonderful, but you're also helping another human being.
That's right.
And then in my third lesson, honestly, and this may sound odd due to my circumstances, just don't take yourself too seriously. Life is so serious all the time. I mean, I was just having melanoma skin cancer cut out my arm. I can't lift it. I have a million stitches, but you know what? It's just a passing moment. I'm getting there. I'm getting sliced and diced the other day, and I'm laughing to the surgeon, and we're having a great time. And that created a memory, and that created a story. And
Mm.
so don't take yourself too seriously.
Beautiful lessons. I love them all. And who cares? I think lots of people do things that make themselves feel good. Like, I'm going to go buy a new car. I'm going to go on vacation. I'm going to do this. So if you get the benefit of feeling good by helping someone else, by golly, go help someone else and reap as many benefits as you can, because it will make you want to do it again and again and again. And I love to help other people. So Allie, as we wind down here, is there any last thoughts or messages you want to, any encouragement you want to send to our listeners before we say goodbye today?
I encourage you to reach out if you're having a bad day. Think of 3 people in your life right now who you could call in your darkest moments, in your silly moments. Who are they? And make them a list. Make a list of them. Text them right now. Give them a phone call and just say thank you for being in my life and being there for me. We don't do that enough to friends or family or people we love or care about.
That's right. And we don't have to wait for a birthday or a holiday. We can just do it, right? Because we never regret sending love too much, but we often regret not sending it enough. And so, yes, so good. So Allie, if people want to reach out and connect with you, which I know they'd love to connect, maybe hire you, hear more of your story, what's the best place to connect with you?
Let's keep it simple, right? The acronym KISS, keep it seriously simple. LinkedIn, Allie, A-L-I, Ingersoll.
I love it, Allie. Thank you so much for being with
Annie,
me.
thank you for having me. I've had such a great time.
Thank you. And keep up the great work of being an encourager, an optimist, and a no excuse sort of girl. No excuses for you. You're amazing. You're doing good work, and you're helping so many people that you will never even meet as an advocate and being a voice to make people that feel invisible seen. So thank you. And we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Take care. Thank you for listening and being with us. We look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.